G'day guys, better late than never. It's only around about 24 hours before we take on the Fremantle Dockers in the gather round at the Adelaide Oval. It's a 4:20 game. I love these twilight games, I really do. I feel like they're always exciting, twilight games. It's going to be a packed house and I'm finally here. I promised to do these a little bit earlier than the day before the game, but yeah, it is what it is. Teams have already been picked, which helps. Don't have to try and predict who's going to come in and who goes out and whether there's going to be any changes. And there's only been one change, and it was a forced change. Brady Kemp gets another opportunity to come in and really work on the defensive aspect of his game. We know what he brings offensively and in the air. I feel like we have that pretty much covered, that sort of intercept type sort of marking with Wiedering and McGovern, and Kemp does add to that, but we need him to be really strong defensively at the contest in particular, and it's something that he admitted he needed to work on over the off season. But I didn't necessarily think in the first two games of the year, he missed out last week, didn't he? That he necessarily had brought that. So he gets another opportunity. He's got his nose in front at the moment for that spot without Callum Marchbank there. And who knows, he puts in a top-notch performance over the next couple of weeks and cements his place in the team. But and the Dockers go in unchanged. They've got some players on the periphery of coming back, but they've decided to play them in the waffle rather than bring him into this team. And they've been relatively happy with the way they've performed, and why wouldn't they be? They've won their first three games, and their form line so far has been excellent. And this is a team that played finals football back in 2022. They won a final, didn't they? Definitely won a final. I'm pretty sure they won a final. So they were building and had an off year last year, but they took some scalps last year. Even though they didn't play finals last year, they're capable of going on the road, and they're going on the road, so are we. But I feel like this is probably a bigger road trip for them than it is for us. We're going to have the lion's share of support, given our association with South Australia and the fact that historically we had a lot of champion players play for our club from South Australia, and I'm not going to go through all those. You know who they are, premiership players, etc., etc. But and a big contingent of Carlton Victorian supporters going across the border into South Australia. It's going to be electric, and whether that gives us an edge, I'm not quite sure. But we're talking about a Fremantle team going on the road. It's a bigger trip, and probably going in underdogs. But historically they're capable of an upset and getting the job done. I've seen it before with Fremantle, and even recently under Justin Longmuir, they've been able to do it as well. So I am not underestimating this Fremantle Dockers team at all. In fact, it's only round 4, and I'm still trying to get a read on us. I really am. I just like Fremantle supporters are probably not getting too far ahead of themselves with their team. I'm seeing the good in Fremantle, but I'm also seeing the good in us. But I'm also seeing what essentially we will need to be able to do to be able to go deep, in 2024. And that is essentially, to make the 8-1. But for us now, it is top 4, top 2. And, these games at the start of the season, we need to get the job done, but at the same time, come 7:20 tomorrow night, it would not surprise me at all if Fremantle get us. It wouldn't surprise me. That's just the way football is. So I am confident in that this group is now mature, and they know what they need to do. They know that they now need to bring that consistency, and it's not so much effort. I mean, you would think any football team would bring effort, but it's more the application and the preparation and the understanding what is required. That there's no need to panic within games if things aren't going your way, and to really, if need be, build into games and, rise to a challenge and not be overawed. I feel like when we went to the gather round last year, that was pretty predictable. We went there with probably a pretty shit mindset, and had our pants pulled down by the Adelaide Crows, and a really poor performance. And it was the start of a really poor stretch for us. I think I am confident that type of performance, or that type of stretch of poor form is behind us. I am confident of that, which is a good thing. But I've still got question marks on us, and I think every supporter will have question marks on their team. I watched the game last night, and I look at someone like Melbourne, and I love watching Melbourne play because there's such a. It's almost like they're on the same. They're all in sync. Their players are all in sync, but at the same time, they can be frustrating because they don't kick big scores. They don't score particularly easy. At times they make it into a grind because they're so strong defensively. But you can see with Melbourne exactly what they want to do. Where with us, I think we are still growing, both offensively and defensively. I think defensively we are quite sound. We built on that last year, but offensively we're still working on our game, and I feel like our midfield can go to another level. I really do. And whether that is just not having, Sam Walsh available at the moment, whether he is the cream on top of the pie, time will only tell. But certainly in the finals last year, he was the cream. He was the cream on top of a blue collar midfield that works really hard, but not necessarily damaging. But what we do know about Fremantle is that midfield is fucking good. He's fucking good. And when you've got someone like Nat Fyfe now playing such a, how would I call the Nat Fyfe role now? Like, he is just like third string, maybe. And wouldn't surprise me to see him go to Patrick Cripps and try and take Patrick Cripps' ability at the stoppage, and that could be, that could work for the Fremantle Dockers and really allow the likes of Brayshaw and Hayden Young and Caleb Sarong, who's an absolute gun. He really is. You look at the size of Brayshaw and you look at the size of Caleb Sarong and you think, fuck, how can they be so good? But they just run all day, and he's a really class act, Caleb Sarong. And Young gives them a different dynamic through the middle of the ground with that left foot. So there are no mugs in there. Whether they have those players, and I used the word before, periphery, on the outside, who can come into the middle or across the centre line, that can add that I suppose that toughness. The likes of, say, Fogarty, and we've got Elijah Hollands now. Can't wait to see what he brings to the table in his second game. I don't think Cottrell's been in super form, but you can throw him into the mix. And Carroll's been okay, etc. So I'm not quite sure, but it's going to be such a tantalising game and a fascinating one, which I must admit I'm thoroughly looking forward to. I really am. And I look at this Fremantle team, and defensively they've been strong. They kept the Crows to 4-10 last week, and I understand the Crows are going like a busted arsehole, but this is a team that last year scored really heavily, and they're not going that well at the moment. But to keep a team to 4-10 in a bit of a scrap at times, so they can scrap, the Dockers, they can scrap, but they can score themselves, was testament to the fact that they've got, like we have, they've got a really, really good general, and that is Alex Pearce. And if we think Harry and Charlie are just going to waltz out there and kick 9 between them, I think we've got another thing coming. I think the interesting thing for me is which player does Alex Pearce go to? I know he likes to play deep rather than higher up the ground. So does he go to Charlie? or does he go to Harry, who is more dangerous? I would probably think he would go to Charlie, just based on the fact that Charlie appears to be playing a lot deeper. Maybe it's horses for courses. Maybe they'll rotate. Him and Pearce and Luke Ryan work really well together. They really do. And Luke Ryan is an exceptional defender. He's probably the Aldi version of Tom Stewart. And that's no disrespect to Luke Ryan, but that's just the way it is. I mean, the fact that he's over in the West, he is hidden a little bit more, but he's exceptionally tough, very, very good intercept defender, and uses the ball really well. And they've got a kid coming through who played his first game last week, 197 centimetres, Josh Draper, who got his opportunity to play as that, I suppose, that second or third tall, and looked a real find. But it's a big ask. It's a big ask, isn't it? And we're talking about tests, and Justin Longmuir has used the word test for this group because he knows he's coming up against a pretty hardened team now. I think we're a sort of a hardened team. That's what happens when we go deep into finals, and we're building that consistency. And Josh Draper is going to have to probably play on. He's probably going to have to play on a Harry or a Charlie at times, and that's going to be a big test for the kid. They've got some exceptional players in really good form who provide a lot of run and carry, particularly Jordan Clark, who puts work into him because we will need to. He likes to get really high up the ground with his pace, and he's an exceptional reader of the play as well. We need to keep a real good eye on him, and Brandon Walker as well has got some real speed, although I have noticed that Brandon Walker's been sporting a particularly heavy knee bandage, so maybe he's maybe not at the peak of his powers. And James H is just the sort of ever reliable journeyman. Nothing spectacular, but I reckon, without using that cliche, well, I'm going to use it, but highly regarded in the four walls. He's been around the traps for a while now, and will get a role. He'll get a role and probably perform it quite well. I think we've got the edges across the wings. I really do. They've been using young Sharp, who's a running machine. We should. That's probably going to be Oliver Hollands v Sharp, and it's a big opportunity for Oliver Hollands or Ollie to, I suppose, to get into a little bit better form. I think he's defensively been okay, but I think he will need to start to get along a little bit. There's a bit of pressure coming through with Jackson Binns, and he'll deserve an opportunity at some stage. But it's a big opportunity for Hollands to find some real form. Akers is terrific. And then their front half. We look at their front half, and they lost Schultz, but it's meant that they're using a young kid, Tom Emmett, who hasn't kicked a goal this year so far as a small forward. But Swiskowski is one of the better defensive small forwards in the game with terrific pace, and will need to be watched. And it's a moments type forward line. I think I used that word last week for North Melbourne. There are moments like football team in that they're young and developing, and they'll have their moments. Well, I feel like this Fremantle forward line have got. I think a lot of forward lines are like that with your big blokes. They have moments. And there's no doubt Taberner has caused us headaches in the past. And he's come in because Brandon Cox, who they really wanted to play as a forward this year, went down with a really bad hamstring injury in round one, and they lost Oscar McDonald. So they've had to throw their team around a little bit, Fremantle. But he's very agile, Taberner, and he's pretty good overhead. And he's annoyingly, he'll have moments, and those moments could be against us. Josh Tracy is just a real combative, old-fashioned key forward who's big and strong and just provides a contest. And my man, Jai Amos, or I like to call him Dry Amos, hasn't had the greatest start to the year, but he is such a difficult matchup. And who goes to those, I'm not quite sure. So does Kemp get Taberner? I'm not quite sure who Kemp goes to. Does he go to Josh Tracy? He's going to have his work cut out in the air. Wiedering likes to play deep. Will he get Jaya Miss, or does he go to Taberner? Those matchups will be fascinating. And who does Mitch McGovern play on? Given that we like to use Mitch McGovern on the sort of medium type forward, like he played on Cam Zerha for a period of time last week, and they've got some firepower down there. If it's not the three big blokes, it's their medium talls. Frederick likes to get up the ground and get out the back, and Michael Walters is an evergreen small forward who will have his moments in this game as well. He's liable to kick 2 or 3 if he gets off the chain. And I think the number one, I suppose, not so much concern, but if he gets going, which he has so far this year, is Luke Jackson. And this is the biggest test of TDK's career so far. And I think Luke Jackson's younger. He's younger in terms of age. Premiership player, came across, and I reckon the Dockers will be extremely happy with what they're seeing with Luke Jackson and his ability to follow up at ground level and become an extra mid when you really talk about it. I mean, he's fucking hard to stop. And that is, I think, the number one concern for me out of this game is whether TDK has one. Not so much the skill in the ruck. That's probably a little bit different to the agility around the ground to go with Luke Jackson. I don't think there's many players in the competition that can go with Luke Jackson around the ground. So it's a big ask. I like the fact that we haven't decided, okay, let's bring in Pitnet to go against Luke Jackson, because I don't think that would work. And Tom De Koning's just going to have to, I just think play his own game. Play his own game, not be overawed, and maybe make Luke Jackson defend as well. And if we can win the ball, maybe go through Tom De Koning at stages and maybe really work Luke Jackson over, because we know he will do that for Fremantle. But it is imperative. It is imperative, guys, that our midfield is on in this game, because that is the area of the game that probably concerns me the most, just given that we've been not necessarily at our best through there. And I feel that's the number one strength for the Dockers at the moment. So sort of confident, but not overly confident in this one, but looking forward to it. Just from a contest point of view, given the time of the year, given the Dockers have got a real point to prove, and given that we want to finish top 2, top 4 at the very least, there's a lot riding on this game so early in the season. Speak soon.